A few words before we begin reading Plato's Republic. Of course, we won't be reading the entire text. We will be reading books 1, 2, 4, and a little bit of 6, and most of book 7 together. There are 10 books in total in Plato's Republic. This is the translation that we will be using, the Grube translation revised by Reeve. And so a couple words. I mentioned in the last video that it's sometimes difficult to distinguish Socrates from Plato. Here's why. So Plato, of course, wrote all of his philosophy in the form of these plays called dialogues. Socrates is the star of all of these plays. So is this character, Socrates. Is that character the same as the historical Socrates, the real guy, Socrates? Well, in some of the plays, yes, I think very much so. And in some, no, I don't think so. In Plato's earliest dialogues, like the Meno and the Phaedo and the Apology, we meet a character named Socrates who seems to say exactly the same things that the real historical Socrates said, do the things that the real historical Socrates did. We know this from other historians, people like Xenophon. In later dialogues, like the Theaetetus and the Laws, uh, the Socrates that we get seems to be a mouthpiece for Plato's own ideas. So, what about the Republic? Well, the Republic is a really interesting case. Most scholars think that Book 1 was written much earlier than books 2 through 10, and I agree with them. I think that's the case. I think that Book 1 represents the historical Socrates, and then it comes to a weird, abrupt ending, and then Socrates is like, hey, I didn't really prove my case. Let me sort of start over. And then I think we really get Plato talking through the mouthpiece of Socrates in books 2 through 10. In any case, what we're going to be reading together is a very special book. I think it's one of the 5 or 6 most important texts in the history of Western thought. Just in the history of Western thought. I think it's up there with Kant's Critique of Pure Reason, with the Bible. It's one of the most important and impressive texts of all time. This really represents Plato's most mature philosophy, and he's the first philosopher to really tackle all areas of philosophy, and that's what he does here, is he weighs in on metaphysics and epistemology, on ethics and aesthetics. He talks about a philosophy of education. He talks about a philosophy of gender. He talks about the rights of women, and he's quite progressive in that regard. It's an absolutely amazing book. He talks about social and political philosophy. He talks about religion and speculates about the afterlife, a possible afterlife. Well, let's meet the characters. After all, this is a play. The main character in all of Plato's dialogues is, of course, Socrates. And you can assume that the things that Socrates says, these are right and good, and these are the things that Plato is agreeing with. The villain is Thrasymachus. And if that name sounds a little familiar, yes, he is one of the sophists that you read about. Um, so he's taking an actual real life sophist, and he's including him as a character in this dialogue. Cephalus is a good natured old man, and he's the host of the party where this is taking place. Polemarchus is his son. He's a decent fellow, but I think he's a little misguided, maybe. And Glaucon and Adeimantus are two friends. Glaucon and Adeimantus, by the way, are the names, Glaucon at least, is the name of one of Plato's real life brothers. That is very interesting. You might be confused about the action at the very beginning. Most all of this is just written as a play and in dialogue. But you might be confused about the action at the beginning. There's some talk about they're going to try to abduct Socrates or something. You might know what in the world's going on. Well, they're all coming back from this sort of drunken festival, and it's as if your college friends are like, "Hey, we're gonna drag you to this party, and if you say no, we're gonna make you come." That's the sort of spirit in which they're sort of abducting Socrates. Socrates is quite willing to go with them. Socrates loves parties and is very, very happy to go, and he wants to, go and talk to all these people. But anyway, they're coming back from a festival, and that's what the setting is there at the beginning. Anyway, I'll be back with more videos soon, but as always, please call, text, email me anytime with questions, concerns, objections. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you, especially during this bit when we're talking about one of my favorite books in the history of philosophy, and one that I just think is incredibly important. Cheers for now.